I'm Brad Hodge, and I just wanted to share with you, I guess, a bit of my thinking around how my personality and my character strengths are going to influence the way in which I engage with both this subject and the community engagement project. Now, doing the big 5 personality characteristics, even though I've done it before, was actually really interesting. And I found that I'm really high on some things and really, really low on other things. Which is slightly frightening. But I guess one of the things that I was really, really high on was industriousness. So I had a really, really high score on industriousness. Now, industriousness means, that it says that I'm likely to be successful, that I want to work really, really hard, that I want to do something really useful, and I don't put things off. And this characteristic is something that for me actually rings true. I'm constantly thinking, okay, go faster. We can do it quicker. The other characteristic, which is a little bit scary, is assertiveness. My tendency to kind of walk into a room and, take charge, put my opinions forward, and I guess stand out in front of people and saying, where are we going? And sometimes, this can be a real problem because I tend to get a bit bossy. Now, the character strengths were actually a surprise for me, and I think that all of my, or 4 of my top 5 character strengths actually come up in this area of transcendence, which is a bit weird because I don't usually use the term transcendence, but this idea of transcendence is, I guess, being able to rise above things. And so, while I wear shirts like this, that are kind of, a bit cynical about the world, and I get a bit cynical about the world, it's always with a sense of good humor, and hope. And so the character strengths that I was the highest in, one of them was hope. So it was this idea of being optimistic. It's believing that my actions will make a difference, or believing in my actions, that my actions will work, and that things will turn out well. The other one is humor, and so this artwork that I created in the background, I love this artwork because people just look at it and go, oh my goodness, what the hell is going on? And they kind of find it amusing. And so the characteristic of humor is being able to recognize amusing situations, being able to look on the lighter side of life, even when things are really tough. And so once I got my head around this idea of transcendence, I started to realize that humor is a way of rising above whatever's going on. That even in the darkest moments, we can actually, find a funny thing. And humor is also a method of coping. And so I know that I've used this in the past. So those, the 2 that I find really interesting, I think really relevant to this subject, are hope, and humor. Now, having a look at this subject, the fact that the personality test says that I'm highly industrious, not all the time, but that's my personality profile. Highly industriousness and high in assertiveness is probably going to have a number of impacts on the way in which I engage with this subject. So obviously, I love to achieve stuff. I really enjoy getting things done. I love being in the workshop, and just knocking out a bunch of work. And so I will, I'm in there early. I'm wanting to knock off a couple of things before the semester begins, and that will be a real resource for the team, because I'm having a wild guess that I will be a bit more organised than perhaps some of them will be, and that will be really useful for them. My industriousness is probably also a bit of a negative in that sometimes if people don't do work, I'm going to get a bit cranky about it, and I probably need to, kind of pull my head in a bit. So I need to be a bit gentle about that. I certainly won't be shy, being high in assertiveness. I know we've got to do a lot of group work in this subject, so I'm already thinking about who's on my team. I'm looking forward to week 1 when we actually find that out, and I'll be making contact with them straight away, because I'll be saying, okay, let's catch up, let's get to know one another. So that will be benefit. I'm going to have to be careful not to take too much control, because there might also be someone else there who wants to do that. And I know that in this subject we're doing a proposal that we've got to propose to the community a couple of times, where we work with the community to develop it, and then we end up proposing, doing like a proper proposal at the end. And I think I'm going to have to be careful not to be overbearing and overly controlled, because other people are going to want to have an influence on that, and they're not necessarily going to want to follow me just because I'm out, wanting to be up the front. And I think in order to do that presentation really well, we're going to have to take advantage of all the skills in the room, and that's going to be really important. Industriousness also comes with being organised, and so that will have an impact. I understand that we've got to do a couple of modules each, and we actually have to have done them and understood them and thought about how that might apply to the project brief. We have to do that well before it's due, because our group has to write a 1,000 word proposal together. And so I think I'll be making sure that we really get stuck into those early, and maybe in week 2 and 3, we actually start to get ahead where each person does it, and we might talk about it when we catch up outside of class time. Now, humour, creating a sense of fun, I think is going to be really important. Even just getting to know one another, in that early stages, sometimes having a laugh together is the best way to break down those barriers. So that's going to be really important. And I know that in the first few weeks, we're actually working on teamwork and teamwork skills. And so I also know that if you like one another, you're more likely to be able to work well together. So a bit of humour can reduce the stress for people. We can laugh together, and then we can get on with the work. The humour might also help when we're working with the community to build rapport. So being able to, have a laugh with a community member is going to relax everybody, and it won't be quite so cold. Now, hope is the other thing. And I guess for me, hope in this instance, some of it is about optimism. It's about saying, hey, rural communities are actually amazing. We have this incredible opportunity. So rather than thinking about the rural community as a problem to be solved, my feeling of hope is that there's huge possibilities. And so I think that will influence the way in which I have conversations with community, but also the project that we create, that it will be very hopeful. It will be, how do we take advantage of the capacity of the community? So together, industriousness and assertiveness, humour and hope, I think that we're going to do really well in this subject. And I think those things will have a really beneficial impact on the way in which I engage with the subject and the way in which I engage with the community.